Isn't she doing this wrong? I think she should add a bit more. Hearing the conversation, I look over at my daughter-in-law Cheryl, who seems utterly stunned. Cheryl looks panicked, holding an apple and just floundering about. Listening to the ongoing conversation between my husband and my son, I start to feel my anger boiling. My husband and son hang up after making their point clear to Cheryl. I lock eyes with Cheryl, who is trembling. She even drops the apple she was holding. Ignoring her distress, I ask, "Could you call them back?" Cheryl, nearly in tears, dials my husband again. While listening to the annoyed voices of my husband and son, I wonder what I should do. My name is Raina, and I'm 62 years old. I've been helping with household chores at home ever since I graduated from high school. I met my husband Oliver through a family introduction, and we got married. Soon after, we had our son and lived happily. My husband would always attend our son Miguel's school events, no matter how busy he was. My son is really cute, and I can't help it. Even when I was sick and couldn't do housework, he would try his best to help. "How are you feeling? Can you eat some chicken soup?" I had to smile when my husband cautiously brought over a pot of soup. It seems he made it after putting our son to bed. Seeing me laugh, my husband joined in, albeit awkwardly. Ever since our son got married, he no longer helps with household chores. But he's good to his wife Cheryl, so I guess it's okay. Sometimes when I'm not feeling well, I find myself craving my husband's chicken soup. I'll never forget the taste of that soup. Lately, I've not been feeling well. It's probably due to age, but I've been having a constant discomfort in my stomach, and I haven't had much of an appetite. Nowadays, since we're living with my son and his wife, Cheryl is in charge of cooking and washing dishes. I handle the rest of the household chores. I can't complain since I'm relieved from most of the cumbersome tasks of cooking and washing dishes. However, I've been feeling feverish lately, and usually lie down on the sofa after finishing the laundry. Just then, my husband walked into the living room. Feeling sluggish, I couldn't get up, but watched his movements carefully. Ignoring me, he passed by the sofa, went to the kitchen table, and started making coffee. The strong aroma of freshly brewed coffee made me cough involuntarily. Hearing that, my husband clicked his tongue softly and left the living room in a hurry once his coffee was ready. It's sad, but lately he's been so cold towards me. It's like I'm a burden to him. I can't pinpoint when things started going south. Somewhere along the line, this is what we've become. Thinking of how caring he used to be made me tear up, and I gently wiped my eyes with my sleeve. Tonight's dinner is meatloaf, but given my poor health, I opted for chicken soup. I'm fully aware of the hassle it takes to prepare a separate meal for one person, but lately, I can't stomach the same food as everyone else. Yet Cheryl, my son's wife, made me chicken soup without a hint of complaint. What a blessing she is in our family. "Mom, chicken soup again? Cheryl's gone through the trouble to make a nice dinner. Isn't it rude not to eat it?" "Don't say that, Miguel. I'm sure Raina feels bad enough as it is." Cheryl interjects with a chuckle. I smile wryly and let her comment slide. Though Cheryl is a bit blunt at times, she's an excellent cook and very considerate. Today's chicken soup was clearly made with my health in mind. She even added a touch of citrus zest to stimulate my flagging appetite. As everyone else happily chatted and dug into their meatloaf, I sipped my chicken soup. Suddenly, I stopped. The soup tasted off. I can't describe it, but it had a chemical taste. At first, I thought it was the wax from the citrus zest, but even avoiding it didn't help. But even after avoiding the citrus peels to give it another taste test, something still felt off. I couldn't help but furrow my brows, catching my husband's attention, who gave me a stern look in return. Despite feeling guilty towards Cheryl, I left most of my plate untouched. Cheryl noticed and asked with concern, "Didn't it taste good?" Feeling cornered, I lied that I wasn't feeling well and let the moment pass. What did I do wrong? Days passed and I was feeling a bit better. Since Cheryl and my son had plans to go out, today was my turn to cook. Eager to finally get out of the house, I went shopping, but my body felt sluggish, perhaps from being bedridden due to my recent illness. Thinking it was just a lack of exercise, I decided to walk to the nearby supermarket. While waiting for the traffic light, a sudden chill ran through my body, and I felt my vision go dark. I instinctively squatted down, but now found myself sweating profusely. Passers-by glanced at me curiously as they walked by. I couldn't move from the spot, clutching my collar tightly, hearing the distant commotion of people and an ambulance siren, until I eventually lost consciousness. When I regained it, I was staring at a white ceiling. I was in a hospital room. Apparently, I had collapsed on the way to the store and had been brought in by an ambulance. "Oh, Reina, you're awake?" Turning towards the voice, I saw Cheryl standing by my bed. I tried to respond, but my body was uncooperative. For that, I couldn't be more grateful to Cheryl, who showed no signs of annoyance. Looking up to say thanks, something about Cheryl's face seemed different. I couldn't pinpoint it, but it scared me. Without noticing my discomfort, Cheryl took an apple from the fruit basket she probably brought for me. "Reina, you haven't been eating well lately, probably malnutrition. Eat this and get better soon," she said, peeling the apple with a fruit knife. Suddenly a phone rang. I wondered whose it was for a moment. It was Cheryl's. I knew I shouldn't, but I glanced at the screen. My husband's name was displayed. "Cheryl, your phone's ringing." "Oh, yes. Can you put it on speaker? My hands are full." While in the middle of peeling the apple, Cheryl hesitated for a second to put it down quickly, but gave up and said so. Doing as told, I answered the phone and pressed the speaker button. "How is she?" "She just woke up. I'm peeling an apple for her right now." "You're conscious again? What stamina you have. What's going on? You're awake already?" From the start of the call, the conversation seemed to be off. Not quite what I expected from people who were supposedly worried about me. Especially my husband and son's part of the conversation made me uneasy. "Didn't expect her to wake up this soon. Did we mess up somehow?" "Hey Cheryl, you've been skimping on the detergent lately, haven't you? Should we add a bit more?" "Detergent? What on earth are they talking about?" I look over at Cheryl. She's holding an apple and her face is pale, trembling. Seeing her face, it clicked for me. It seems they've been adding detergent to my meals. Cheryl had been watching my expression change and finally dropped the apple she was holding. Meanwhile, the conversation between my husband and son continued, unabated. "Even if we fix the detergent ratio, maybe just mixing it into the food isn't enough." "Yeah, I'd like that insurance money sooner rather than later. Maybe we should mix it into her drinks next time." "It's amazing she hasn't noticed." "She won't notice. This is someone who doesn't even realize she's despised." Laughing heartily, my husband and son ended the call. I clenched the bedsheets, biting my lip. How did things turn so dark? Why must I suffer this way at the hands of my husband, son, and even my daughter-in-law? What did I do to deserve this? There are no answers, no matter how much I think about it. I shot Cheryl a fierce glare. She's trembling. Probably never expected their plot would be revealed like this. She panics, fidgeting with her hands. Taking advantage of the moment, I pull my cell phone from my bag. I open the recording app and say to Cheryl, "Call them again." "What?" "Call my husband. Again." Overwhelmed by my urgency, Cheryl dials the number. After a few rings, the call connects. "What's up, Cheryl? Did she finally kick the bucket?" Next to my husband, who answered with a nasty grin, my son casually talks to Cheryl. "Don't worry, we'll split Mom's insurance money evenly. Actually, you'll get a bit more for all your trouble. Yeah, adding detergent to her meals is no small feat. You deserve it." They laughed uproariously and hung up. I stopped the recording and glare at Cheryl once more. Finally accepting her fate, Cheryl weakly lowers her arms and looks up at the ceiling. I grabbed Cheryl by the shoulders and pressed her for answers. Realizing she was cornered, Cheryl spilled all the details. She confessed that her husband and son-in-law loved to gamble, and they often went to gamble together. But they kept losing and went into debt, continuing their gambling sprees anyway. This mounting debt left them desperate, and they decided to take out a life insurance policy on me, without my knowledge, to collect the money. This plan started 2 years ago, but there are various conditions for an insurance payout, and the quickest, surefire way to meet them was if I became ill. So they apparently came up with a scheme to slowly poison me by mixing detergent into my food. Now that she mentioned it, about 2 years ago, Cheryl suddenly started taking over meal preparation. At first, I offered to help, but Cheryl was strongly against it, so I let her handle it. No wonder she was so opposed. If I helped with the meals, it would be difficult to mix detergent into my plate only, and if caught, the whole plan would fall apart. Then Cheryl dropped another bombshell. The masterminds behind this plan were Oliver and Miguel. They both assured me it would work. After hearing this, I couldn't stay put. Pretending to go to the bathroom, I slipped out of the hospital. Initially, I thought about going home and giving my husband and son a piece of my mind, but that wouldn't satisfy me, so I decided on another course of action. I immediately sought out a lawyer after leaving the hospital. Luckily, it didn't take much time to find a law office, and I quickly went in and explained my situation. The lawyer was skeptical at first, but after I played the recording from earlier, his expression changed dramatically. He advised me to contact the police, but I told him there was something else I wanted to do first, and we proceeded with the necessary paperwork. With everything in place, except what I needed from my husband, I set out again with my lawyer. Of course, our next destination was the police station. I began by explaining the whole situation. The police were as skeptical as the lawyer initially, but as soon as I provided the recording and additional explanations from the lawyer, they swung into action. Afterward, a female officer accompanied me back to the hospital, while the lawyer headed to my house with the police. Upon returning to the hospital, Cheryl was still there and was immediately taken away by the police. As for me, I felt briefly relieved without Cheryl around, but couldn't relax, worried that my husband and son might burst into the hospital room. I went through cycles of lying down and getting up on the bed. Eventually, a nurse came to check on me. I had to explain a lot, but it distracted me a bit. The nurse was shocked by my story and seemed speechless. She remembered the policewoman and Cheryl leaving earlier and went back to the nurse station to process my admission for the day. I can't say how much time had passed, but eventually a different pair of police officers visited me in the hospital room. Worried that my husband and son had escaped, I listened to their updates, fighting back tears. To my surprise, they informed me that my husband, son, and Cheryl had been safely arrested. When the police had initially entered my home, neither my husband nor my son were present, leading them to suspect they had fled. But in reality, they were just out gambling and got arrested after being questioned by the police patrolling the area. I couldn't believe their nerve, gambling while I was being rushed to the hospital. Though they had wished for my health to deteriorate, they should have known I was waking up. Their casual attitude really infuriated me. But their recklessness led to their swift arrest, so I guess there's no use complaining now. In the end, my husband, son, and Cheryl were charged with attempted murder. On top of that, my husband was served divorce papers from me, through my lawyer. At first, he opposed the divorce, but after hearing the sum of the damages he'd owe, he agreed to all my conditions, including transferring the house into my name in exchange for a lower settlement. As for my son and Cheryl, well, with my son in jail, I seized the opportunity to sever all family ties through a legal affidavit. No more financial support, period. Even if he's released, I'm treating him like a complete stranger. As for Cheryl, I told her parents everything. Initially, they didn't believe me, but by the time I finished my story, they were visibly shaken. And sincerely apologized. Unexpectedly, Cheryl's mother left the room and returned with a thick envelope. Inside the envelope was $50,000. As I stood there in disbelief, they both continued to apologize profusely. It seemed like they intended this as compensation. I tried to decline several times, but they insisted, almost in tears, that I should accept it. So I finally did. Time passed and I found myself back in good spirits. The spacious house, now devoid of people, allowed me to live my life without compromise. And yes, I could finally eat whatever I liked without worrying. Since that incident, I think I've become a bit of a germaphobe. When doing the dishes, I minimize the use of soap. I still think it's a waste of water, but I make sure to thoroughly rinse off any soap. It's not just for dishes, I extend this habit to showering and laundry too. If I don't, I hesitate to even put things in my mouth or on my body. While my husband, son, and Cheryl are certainly to blame for this change, I think I'll gradually get better. Because they're not in my house anymore, I have the freedom to live as I please. Some may think I'm emotionally scarred, but from my perspective, I feel utterly relieved and refreshed. I've switched to a new cell phone. The incriminating voice recordings have been turned over to the police, and honestly, just keeping that phone would have felt disgusting. As I think about the freedom my new phone represents, I'm motivated to try things I've never dared before. Maybe I'll get into the trending world of cooking live streams. My name is Sherry. I am thrilled to be opening my own coffee shop. My husband, Ken, left his job at a restaurant to join me. After all, it was our dream to run a coffee shop together. We don't have kids yet, but this shop we've created through countless trials and errors, from financing to location and interior design, is our baby. So we are eagerly awaiting for our grand opening, our baby's debut. One day, while we were buzzing around with preparations, we had a visitor to our place, right above the shop. It was Ken's mom, my mother-in-law. She's a laid-back person, accepting of our venture. I admire her calm character and kindness so much. I hope to be such a mother-in-law when I have my own daughter-in-law. It's still a few days early for our grand opening celebration, but she arrived with an enormous load of luggage. Surprised, Ken and I asked what happened. Then she said, "I've been kicked out of Joe's house." Just as she said, she'd been kicked out of the apartment she shared with my brother-in-law and had nowhere else to stay. I knew this would be a busy time for you guys, but... She looked apologetic. Her nonchalant attitude only made it harder for me. But Ken and I, we were both furious, not at her, but at my brother-in-law. Ken immediately called him. "Joe, Mom showed up alone at our place, saying she's been kicked out. What's going on?" Joe, remorseful yet firm, told us, "We just can't live together. My wife and I are also swamped, starting a new business, and we don't have time to take care of Mom, who's becoming forgetful. Could you guys take care of her for a while? Once we're settled, we'll come to get her." Though it served his interests, we couldn't trust his words. Joe had reluctantly cared for our mother-in-law just because he was the older brother. Joe's wife wasn't very caring either. They must be having a blast after kicking her out. So I thought of a way to prevent our kind mother-in-law from feeling lonely or pitiful. "Okay, if that's what you say, Joe. Mother-in-law, you can live with us." There was no other choice. Their father had already passed away, and there were only 2 brothers, so there was no one else to take care for her. I feel a bit imposed upon, but my mother-in-law is family to me too. I can't just not take care of her, especially since she's so kind, and I love her dearly. "If you're fine with it, then I want her to stay with us too." Ken also seems optimistic. Apparently, Ken was always a mama's boy, so it may actually be a good thing for him to have his mother close by. "Well, thanks, Ken, Sherry. I'll have to think about how I can repay you." My mother-in-law seems to understand the situation, or maybe she doesn't. She just responds casually. "How about I make dinner every day?" "Oh, but you two are running a restaurant, so there's no need for me to cook, right?" I think helping your family is a given. But if she wants to repay us, Ken and I thought about having her help at the store sometimes. "Mother-in-law, if you'd like, could you help out at the shop sometimes? Chatting with customers, making desserts, spending time like that might be enjoyable." "Well, if it helps you two, I'd like to do anything." Mother-in-law happily agreed. If she considers it as one of the household chores, she'll probably get used to cooking quickly. Anticipating that, Ken and I talked about having her help with mainly cooking. With the conversation going in that direction, we decided to show her with the store downstairs. After we went down the stairs and showed her around the ground floor cafe and introduced the opening menu, my usually slow-paced mother-in-law suddenly became clear and assertive. "Ken, Sherry, this shop won't be popular as it is. It's still not too late to prepare, so start now." Ken and I were astounded at the confidence out-of-the-blue ideas our mother-in-law proposed. For example, given the current retro trend, even a newly built store should have old-fashioned interior and background music. The menu should include items that mother-in-law used to eat when she was young, to not only attract young people riding the retro wave, but also to appeal to older customers. Moreover, since the number of candy shops in our town is decreasing, we should set up a corner for candies, allowing buyers to eat inside the store, and would attract families with children. All her ideas were innovative and in line with the town's needs. They were so spot on that we had to agree, and under the direction of our mother-in-law, we immediately began preparing. After our mother-in-law started living with us, our long-desired store opened a few days later, and a month has passed since then. If the store had no future, the number of customers would significantly decrease after a month, but we don't have that worry with our store. We get so many customers every day that there's a line. All this is thanks to our mother-in-law. "Sherry, the sandwich for table 3 is ready. Please bring it over." "Yes, coming right now." Though I'm busy, each day is fulfilling. It might have been a real blessing that my mother-in-law decided to barge into our lives at that time. But one day, an intruder would disrupt our busy yet enjoyable days. It was my brother-in-law and his wife. "We live in the same town, you know. We've heard the rumors. Your business seems to be flourishing. And isn't it true that Mom is being called the beloved granny of the store?" My brother-in-law, with a sarcastic look on his face, glanced around the cafe and said this. Actually, we're thinking of starting our own shop too. A boba milk tea shop, which has been all the rage since last year. For that, we would love to have Mom help us out. That's why we came to pick her up. Give Mom back. Huh? Joe, what are you saying all of a sudden? Well, it was agreed from the start that she would return once we settled down. Now it's time. Come on, give Mom back. You guys have had enough of your good fortune, haven't you? It's our turn now. As if they can just return my mother-in-law like she's some kind of lucky charm. They can say whatever they want, but the cafe that the three of us created is just starting to take off. The real test is still to come. We're already relying on my mother-in-law as a full-time employee. If she were to leave us now, who would fill that gap? You can just hire part-time workers. A thriving business like yours should have no trouble attracting young workers, right? They'd probably work harder than an elderly woman like Mom. So Mom, let's say goodbye to Sherry and Ken, and go home together. At Joe's words, my mother-in-law agreed surprisingly easily. Both my husband and I were thrown off. Mom, you don't have to listen to Joe. You can stay where you want. Ken, I really think it's okay to go back to Joe's place. I'm sorry for interfering, Sherry, but it was fun working with you two. Come and visit us at home sometime. Without giving the impression like she was being taken away by force, my mother-in-law went back home with Joe and his wife. There was no time to feel wronged or bitter, but with the absence of my mother-in-law, who was like oil in our machinery, both the cafe and our home felt a bit emptier. That much was certain. Days where we forgot about time due to our busyness passed, and before we knew it, about half a year had passed. The cafe is still bustling as usual today. The advice from my mother-in-law, whom we haven't heard from since that day, has undoubtedly contributed to our success. I wonder if she's doing okay. I thought about calling her out of concern, but seeing Ken, who obviously felt abandoned by his mother, acting sulky, I couldn't bring myself to make contact. Welcome! The atmosphere at home isn't great, but the store opens today as always, and we have customers coming in. And on that day, it was not a customer who opened the door of the shop, but my mother-in-law, her usual serene expression on her face. Sherry, Ken, I've missed you. Mom, what brings you here all of a sudden? Mother-in-law, we were worried about you. You never reached out. Have you been okay? In response to our barrage of questions, my mother-in-law simply smiled and repeated what she had said once before. I was kicked out of Joe's house. They asked me to help at the shop, and I did. But it seems the business has been floundering. They told me I was a nuisance, so I left, and I was hoping to work with you guys again. It seemed that yet again my mother-in-law had been driven out for a reason you wouldn't think to do to your own mother. Ken and I began to plot our revenge on Joe, but it turned out there was no need. Joe showed up on his own, looking utterly worn out. Mom, why do you keep disappearing without a word? Both me and her are struggling without you. Joe's wife, also known as Her, wasn't present today. It seems she was overseeing the shop. Joe, don't make it sound like it's my fault. You guys said you wanted to cut labor costs. So I, being your family, decided to leave first. I then understood what she meant by being kicked out. If they wanted to cut labor costs, they'd first dismiss the ones who could easily be let go. Or my mother-in-law, who was at an age where she technically didn't need to work. That was not about you, Mom, but the part-timers, the students. We never said a word about you. Moreover, I don't want to be in your shop anymore. I don't want to jump into a sinking ship. If they asked me to finance a failing shop using my savings and pension, it'd be unbearable. Don't be like that. Come back to the shop and give us advice like you did to Ken. Didn't you say that even an old woman like you could give advice on managing the shop, and that Ken and his team were very kind? We also want advice from you. It's not a big deal. No way. I helped Ken and his team because they wanted to create a coffee shop like the one I worked at when I was young. A place where the local people can relax. You're only interested in your own profits and short-term gains. That's not true. I also opened a store to sell trending desserts for the revitalization of our community. Is that really so? Young people's trends change so quickly. You're not capable of adapting to such volatile changes because you're a business novice. Besides, even if it's trendy, young people are very observant of adults, and they'll naturally migrate to a better shop. Your shop might be novel and shiny, but the staff training isn't up to the mark. And customers don't seem comfortable there either. Just because you have experience working in a finance department and are good with numbers, it doesn't mean you can run a business well. It's pathetic. It's clear that the staff are blindly led too. With a sigh, my mother-in-law continued to speak with a sorrowful expression, as if lamenting her own son. In a small-town diner like this, you can't just mindlessly sell what's trendy among young folks. You failed to cater to customers' needs. You couldn't captivate their hearts. I wonder if you really aspire to be in the service industry. It saddens me. Especially since I used to be a waitress at a coffee shop. I just couldn't, and don't want to, work at your place. You should have said so from the very beginning. You were quick to intervene with Ken, but with me, you just went along with things. I couldn't intervene, Joe. Your shop is targeting young people from the start, and there's nothing I, an old lady, can make suggestions on. I don't fully understand young people's trends because of my age. I'm just an old woman who used to be a waitress. I can't live up to high expectations. Now please, stop making a scene in Ken's shop. You should go back to your place and deal with your finances. Joe, feeling belittled by his mother, finally blew up. Enough! Let's go home! If you say you only knew about coffee shops, I'll change my business and make it a coffee shop. You can give me advice like you did for Ken and make me a lot of money. Joe tried to grab his mother's arm and pull her away. Ken and I stepped in, restraining Joe. It wasn't just Ken. I had also lost patience. Listening to the conversation, I had been holding back words I'd long wanted to say. There's no way someone who can't even care for his own mother can consider the needs of complete strangers. You can go home on your own. And don't come to see your mother again. She is a coworker to us, not a tool for you to make money. My husband threatened to call the police if he caused any more trouble. And with that, Joe finally left. After that, Joe and his wife, who treated my mother-in-law terribly, predictably failed in their business and ended up filing for bankruptcy. On top of that, they were sued by their part-time workers for harassment and unpaid wages, resulting in having to pay a hefty compensation. Joe and his wife got divorced, and he was also sued for alimony, ending up in layers of debt. Joe, who had treated his own mother so horribly, couldn't rely on his family anymore. He would have to live and work alone, slowly paying off his debt. We heard about Joe's situation through a relative, but my mother-in-law didn't seem to care, showing no intention of throwing him a lifeline. I don't have time to worry about him. I'm going to be a grandma. I'm looking forward to taking care of my grandchild. Indeed, neither mother-in-law nor Ken and I had the time to worry about Joe. Our shop was thriving more than ever since mother-in-law came back, and we were blessed with our long-awaited child. Sherry, don't stress out just because it's your own shop. Work at your own pace. All of us, and our regular customers too, are most excited to see your child's face. Thank you, mother-in-law.
I snagged your rich husband.
The first call I received from my younger sister Lois, who hadn't replied to any of my messages, came just before our mother's funeral.
I just got back from Hawaii with Keith. I brought you some chocolate souvenirs.
Enraged at her thoughtlessness, I lost control and yelled at her in front of the entire family. "You can have my husband, just get to the funeral already." Taken aback by my outburst and what I'd said, Lois could only respond with a bewildered "what?" from the other end of the line. After giving her the address of the funeral home, I angrily hung up. I knew she'd try calling back, so I turned off my phone, sat down in the seat designated for the family, and tried to gather myself. My name is Emily, and I just turned 38. I grew up in a family of 4, my parents and my sister, who's 6 years younger than me. My parents were strict, especially with me, the eldest, but they always spoiled Lois because of her charming looks. Whenever Lois wanted something, she would flash an irresistible smile and say, "Emily, I want this," and I would almost always give in. Regrettably, this habit persisted even after she grew up, and she became an extremely troublesome sister. My father passed away due to illness 8 years ago, and my mother received a terminal diagnosis about 6 months ago. She had been in and out of the hospital. I married Keith, a senior colleague from work, 2 years ago, and moved away from my family home to an apartment near my office. Over the past 6 months, I was driving an hour each way to take care of my ailing mother in between work. Lois had moved back home and quit her job a year ago after breaking up with her then boyfriend. Still, she insisted that I was better at caregiving and kept pushing the responsibility onto me. So I took a month off from work to care for our mother, but despite my best efforts, she passed away 2 days ago. And where was Lois? She had jetted off to Hawaii a week prior. I tried my best to convince her not to leave, but she wouldn't listen and went off anyway. At the funeral, after the priest finished speaking, friends and family began to pay their respects. It was a testament to my kind-hearted mother that not only relatives, but many of her friends also came to mourn. Several colleagues from my company also showed up. "I'm sorry for your loss." "Thanks. I'm just grateful that you allowed me to take time off to spend with my mother in her final moments." He's my father-in-law, the president of the company I work for. He's been extremely understanding about my situation and has helped me a great deal. "But where is Keith? I haven't seen him here." "Well, he's been overseas on a business trip since last week and I haven't been able to reach him." "Oh, I see. I'll ask the sales manager about it." For the large company he runs, Keith and I are in different departments. Keith works in sales and he constantly complains, "I'm always busy with business trips." I tried to understand that he was not here during this difficult time, but I was anxious about having to handle everything on my own, and without being able to contact him or my sister. Meanwhile, my father-in-law took time out of his busy schedule to attend the funeral, and his support almost brought me to tears. I felt so grateful for it. I had to hold back the tears that were almost overflowing. In the limo heading to the crematory with the rest of the family, I turned my phone back on, hoping that Keith might have tried to contact me. To my surprise, there were nearly 30 voicemails, most of them from Lois.
Answer your phone. You can't just make up some ridiculous lies because you're upset that I took Keith from you.
What I heard was her yelling voice. She took Keith from me? Have I heard something like that? When she called before the funeral, I was too preoccupied with the handling of the mourners to comprehend properly what she was saying. Lois and Keith are having an affair? No, that can't be true. I was startled and felt sudden agitation. Does that mean Keith was on a trip with her? Seriously? When I hastily checked the voicemail, there were several from my husband.
"Emily, I'm so sorry, but you're a strong woman. You can survive on your own, but Lois, I need to support her, so let's break up."
Hearing his message that sounded almost like a line from a soap opera, I heard myself mutter, "I wish I hadn't heard it. Why did I have to find out that my husband and sister were having an affair and having a great time in Hawaii during my mother's funeral? You need to come right away if you want to say your final goodbye to Mom. We're already heading to the crematory." I reluctantly called my sister and told her so.
"That is not funny. Stop lying. You're just bitter because I took Keith from you."
But it's the truth.
"You must be upset about losing your husband. Yeah, he's the next company president and rich. I understand how you feel, Emily.
So?
But there are good lies and bad lies, you know. You're an adult. You should know better."
I never thought I'd hear that from you. I was surprised, though I didn't know that you and Keith had been cheating.
"I bet."
Lois sounded really happy. Ever since we were kids, she would play tricks on me and laugh out loud when I fell for them. I sighed in frustration. Anyway, it's not the time for this. If you want to say your final goodbye to Mom, come now.
I'm tired of that lie.
Then why don't you have Keith ask his father? On the other end of the phone, the two of them sounded like they were having a discussion. They probably didn't expect me to bring up his father. My husband, who was apparently right next to Lois, took the phone.
"Emily, is that true?"
If you don't believe it, do whatever you want. I'm hanging up now. After a while, we arrived at the crematory. This is my last moment to say goodbye to Mom, and my mind is a mess. With the rush of these past few days and the grief of losing my mother, I no longer knew what to do, and I found myself with tears streaming down my cheeks. Seeing me like this, one of my relatives patted my back saying, "Your mom would surely be grateful to you, Emily. You took good care of her until the end." I stood in front of my mother's casket and said my final goodbye. "Mom, thank you for everything. I'm gonna miss you so much." It was right at the moment when her casket was carried out for the cremation. "Wait a minute, where's Mom?" With a loud voice, my sister and husband rushed in. When Lois saw the casket disappearing behind the doors, she tried to cling to it, but the doors are closed mercilessly in front of her. "No, I haven't said goodbye to Mom yet. Stop it!" Lois was wailing, and Keith was standing behind her, stunned. "We should move as it's disturbing to others." "Why didn't you tell me, Emily? I couldn't see Mom at the end. It's your fault." "My fault?" "Absolutely. If it was this bad, you should have told me earlier. You never said anything." I can't count how many times I've explained our mother's health condition to Lois. Every single time she'd just brush it off saying, "I don't know how to handle any of this. I'll leave it to you, Emily." "That's right. This all happened because you didn't explain how serious your mother's condition was. It's your fault." Even my husband, Keith, started blaming me. I stared at them in fury. "Then what were you two doing all this time?" I raised my voice. Gasping, they finally fell silent. "If you can't say it, I will. You were on a fun-filled, romantic getaway in Hawaii together, weren't you?" The relatives started to murmur as they had been observing this in disbelief. Up until now, whenever relatives asked, "What's wrong with Lois?" or "Isn't Keith coming?" I've been making excuses for them so that they wouldn't look like the bad guys. "Mom, I'm sorry. I really wanted to say goodbye to you more quietly." Apologizing in my mind, I knew I had to clear up things here and steeled myself. "When exactly did this affair start? You knew I was on leave, caring for Mom, right? I was having a hard time. I asked for help numerous times, but all you two did was spend fun time together, didn't you?" "Enough, it's all your fault, Emily. It's because you didn't keep Keith close enough." What's that supposed to mean? "You need to prioritize your husband more. He said he was bored at home because all you talk about is work and caregiving. Poor Keith." Oh, so that's what he said. As I glared at Keith, he quickly looked away, avoiding my gaze. "Emily, you managed to marry a rich future company president, but you got conceited. That's why he got snatched away by me. You always do this, Emily." In reality, every time I had a boyfriend in high school or university, Lois stole them from me. The only time it didn't happen was with Keith because Lois was already living with her boyfriend at the time. What a shame. From now on, I'll be with Keith and become the future president's wife, so break up with him. Fine, you can have Keith. I'll divorce him. By then, I didn't care about anything. When I decided to marry Keith, I had no idea he was the son of the president. He was working at a regional branch and came to work at the headquarters in my department. Keith was bright, friendly, and good at connecting with everyone, quickly becoming a part of the team. I started to have feelings for him as he approached me. We started dating, and when he proposed eventually, I happily accepted. It wasn't until I visited his parents' house that I found out his father was the president of the company I worked for. It was a real surprise. "So promise me, don't come back later begging you don't want a divorce." "I won't do that." "You're sure you want to leave me?" "Yes, I am." "If you leave me, no man will marry a workaholic like you. You know that, right?" "I can live my life as I like on my own, but for today, please say your final goodbye to Mom properly." Keith and Lois exchanged looks, smirking as if they'd won. The relatives furrowed their brows watching the situation. "I'm really sorry for showing such an unpleasant scene." As I was apologizing to my relatives, I heard Lois whisper to me, "Always playing the good girl. I hate this about you." I've put up with a lot because she was my little sister, but I'll stop considering her as such. I'm getting divorced from Keith, and I have no family left. All I need to do is prepare myself for that. I bit my lower lip hard. 2 weeks have passed since then. I moved all my stuff out of the apartment I had been living in and started living in a new condominium that I had leased near the office. I even put my parents' house up for sale, and there's nothing left. Lois began living with Keith as I moved out. Of course, Keith and I have already completed our divorce papers and submitted them to the courthouse. I'm sure they're happily starting their newlywed life right now. Well then, I've finished handling Mom's paperwork. Now the revenge begins. Watch over me, Mom. I smiled at my mother's portrait, picturing the events to come. Enjoy your newlywed life while you can, you two. The next day, while I was at the office for my job reinstatement, a lot of voicemail messages piled up on my cell phone.
"Hey, what's going on? We're divorced, aren't we? Why do I have to pay $30,000?
Anticipating that they might come to my new place if I leave them alone, I decided to meet at a local diner. As soon as we started talking, Keith was frothing at the mouth and yelling, "I received a document from a lawyer. What's this all about? We're already divorced, aren't we?" "Exactly. I don't understand." I had asked a lawyer to claim $40,000 from Keith as my share of the property and $30,000 from Lois for her part of the medical care coverage for our mother. The documents must have arrived at their place. It's something that they should have expected, but they probably didn't. I was exasperated. You just need to pay what you owe. That's not fair. Listen, don't think you can get away with what you've done. I've suffered from tremendous emotional distress. Should I sue you for that as well? Emotional distress? You cheated. That's a fact. So pay up. They fell silent for a moment, probably realizing they couldn't argue with the law. Then, after a while, Lois started looking down at me. So, Emily, you're just after the money after all. Fine. I'll let Keith pay. If I borrow money from my dad, we can easily prepare the $70,000. Keith, I know you don't have any savings. Lois, are you really okay being with a guy who doesn't have any money? Keith will become the president soon, then he'll be rich. It's just a bit of patience. Oh, Lois, you're after the money too, aren't you? No, I have plenty of love. Dad has been saying for a long time that he'll retire when he turns 65. So in 2 years, I'll be the president. Really? It'd be great if you could really become the president. I'm definitely going to become one. I'm the only son. I wonder. Finally, I couldn't hold back any longer and burst out laughing. I can't believe this. Has she finally lost it? I heard my sister saying. But the real stage of the revenge that I had set up is just starting. Keith, you've been missing work for quite a long time, saying it's because of the family funeral, right? Well, my mother-in-law is family too. That's true. But the company knows what you've been actually doing. Huh? You don't know that your father was kind enough to attend Mom's funeral, do you? I had purposely not informed Keith and Lois about this, so Keith believed that his father knew nothing about what was going on. I've let the company and the president, your father, know that you lied about taking family leave for caregiving and went off to Hawaii with your mistress instead. Oh, you never did any caregiving at all. You have the gall to act so brazenly, and you've been off work with Lois on several of your business trips, haven't you? I've reported that too. How did you find out? Lois has been posting photos on social media showing where and when she went out. Plus, there were a few pictures with you in them. How shocking. Huh? You knew about my social media? It's the same account you had back when you were in high school. Of course I'd know. Lois looks uncomfortable, and Keith is taken aback by my words. Hey, is it true that Dad knows everything? Just as my mother was family to you, your father considered her his family. And of course he would know about the family funeral, as it should be reported to the company. Even after the funeral, he cared about me and had contacted me several times. So I had reported all the past events to him. He is quite furious. Also, he said he has absolutely no intention of making you the next president. Huh? But I'm his son! He said he doesn't remember ever saying that our company follows the principle of hereditary succession. Also, he told me to convey that he doesn't need a son who would do such disloyal acts. Huh? So Keith isn't going to be the president? As I silently smiled at them, their faces turned pale. I decided to press them even more. And just to let you know, I'm becoming the president starting next month. Huh? Actually, I had just received the official notice from the president and my superiors at the company. I have officially been appointed as the new president. There is no way they'd let you become the president. If you think it's a lie, why don't you call your father right now and ask? Keith is frantically calling his father. Lois, his new wife, is watching anxiously. So, Emily is becoming the president. It was true. So, I can't become the president's wife? If I knew that, I wouldn't have stolen you from Emily. But you just told me you love me. That was including your money. What did you say? I couldn't stand the couple starting their squabble in front of me, and I got up. If you want to fight, do it somewhere else. Oh, I'll be expecting the payment. Thanks. Wait, please don't abandon me. Please support me, sis. I apologize. I deftly sidestepped the hands that the two of them stretched out in desperation and left the place. After that, the two of them ended up getting a divorce. My ex-husband, Keith, was demoted by his father and eventually quit his job. Now he's working part-time jobs every day to pay what he owes me. Lois is said to be working in a bar at night. Apparently, she was doing well at first, but she was fooled by a bad man and ended up in a terrible situation. I've become the president. That being said, it's for a small company that's like a tenant in the main company building, a subsidiary in the caregiving industry that was established based on the proposal I submitted during my caregiving leave. Still, the caregiving business is expected to expand in the future, and I'm expected to do well. I'll do my best from now on. Marriage isn't the only path to happiness. I heard someone say that on TV, and it's not entirely wrong. I'm 45 and single, but I'm living a fulfilled life. At my brother's wedding, I've thought, they look so happy. I'm a bit envious, but marriage really hinges on who you're with. This is a record of my battle with a crazy woman I encountered. My name is Elle, and I'm 45 years old. I'm a single woman living alone. I've given up on marriage, but I haven't given up on my life. Work is going well, and I'm enjoying happy days. If you ask me if I have my retirement planned out, I couldn't exactly nod in agreement. However, I've already paid off my home loan and I'm preparing for retirement by revisiting things like insurance. I have a father and mother and a younger brother, Stephen, who's 10 years younger. My parents are living even after 70 and my brother is happily married. He and his wife had their first child 3 years ago and their second last fall. My parents, who used to nag me about marriage and children, stopped since they now see their grandchildren thanks to my brother's family. My parents and brother seem happy, and I can enjoy my remaining years alone in peace. That life doesn't sound too bad, I thought casually. The only problem was my brother's wife, Liliana. Liliana is the same age as my brother, 10 years younger than me. Nonetheless, she always comes at me with unbelievable attitudes. When they had their first child, I gave them a baby gift. Instead of thanking me, Liliana disdainfully said, Elle, just so you know, don't think that giving a gift now means you're set for the future. That's just ridiculous. What do you mean? I responded, puzzled by Liliana's words. She snorts and continues. Don't play dumb, Elle. You're single, so you plan to rely on our child in the future, right? I'll say it now. I didn't give birth for your sake. So I definitely don't want to be responsible for your old age care. Wait, what? I just gave a birth celebration gift, right? Even though I never mentioned anything about wanting to be taken care of in old age, why do I have to hear something like this? I couldn't understand why she was so angry or how this conversation turned to my old age. When I reported this to my brother, he called his wife and arranged a proper discussion. Liliana, Elle just gave a birth celebration gift, right? So why did you say something like that? My brother questioned her and she made a terrifying face and responded, What? Stephen, what are you talking about? Elle wants to depend on our child in old age. That's why she gave us so much money, right? No, I just gave a little more because my cute brother had a child. Listening silently to their conversation, my brother scolded her. Stop it! Elle didn't say anything like that. She just gave us a birth celebration gift as an aunt because we had a child. That's all. What are you talking about, Stephen? Are you on Elle's side? She glared at me angrily and shouted, Hey! It's Elle's fault. I got yelled at by Stephen. Huh? Me? I was surprised to be suddenly blamed. Liliana, like Stephen said, I just gave the birth celebration gift with genuine congratulations. Don't lie. I know what you're thinking. Anyway, I'm not thinking what you think, Liliana. I plan to live on my own and it's okay. You say that. When our child grows up, you'll trick them into taking care of you, right? So, I'm not thinking of relying on my nephew. Liliana continued to scream and shout until she was satisfied. There was no point in talking anymore. I decided to leave her response to my brother and went home. A few days later, Liliana called to apologize. She seemed more subdued, possibly scolded by my brother. Elle, I'm sorry about the other day. I was a little oversensitive. Just after giving birth, I said something rude and I'm sorry. I don't have experience with childbirth, but it seems that women just after giving birth might see everyone as an enemy and overreact. I told her, it's okay. You must have been tired, Liliana, and decided to forgive her for now. I only see my brother's family during the New Year's holiday or at family events. But as an aunt, I want to do something, so I sent presents or gift cards for birthdays and Christmas. However, when their second child was born last fall and I gave another birth celebration gift, Liliana became wild again. Hey, Elle, you understand that both of them are my children, right? What do you mean? Don't think of adopting one of them. Don't even think of something so unreasonable. Adopt? I never intended. Don't think you can have your way by giving a birth celebration gift. I will never give these children to you. Just like when the first child was born, not even a thank you. In fact, she talked as if I was bribing her children. Of course, my brother stepped in again. Hey, Liliana, are you still saying that stuff? She yelled, "Shut up," at my brother, who was defending me. Stephen is too trusting. I'm the one who gave birth to them, and they're getting lured by money. What if she says, "Give me one of them someday"? It'll be a problem, won't it? Come on, Elle would never do that. Just be quiet already. I hurried home, seeing my brother and his wife starting to argue. It had become silly to make any more excuses. Although Liliana called me again to apologize a few days later, I was in no mood to forgive her. I'm really sorry, I lost control of myself again. I had no sympathy left. Thinking about the future, I was sure it was best to have less to do with her. I think it's best we don't see each other anymore. You don't have to pay me back. Good luck with raising your kids. I told her that over the phone and hung up without waiting for her reply. I'm 45 and single, surely not a good look in society, and I do worry about my old age. But that doesn't mean I intend to rely on others, or even worse, expect my nephews to look after me. No matter how much I explain this to Liliana, she won't believe me, nor does she take my opinion into account. Feeling it would only worsen my mood, I decided to keep away from her as much as possible. I didn't send anything for the first Christmas after my brother's second child was born. I contacted my parents and decided to visit them separately from my brother and his wife. After the new year, a few days into my regular work schedule, I got a sudden call from Liliana. Hello? I answered, showing no credulity. Liliana, with a complacent tone, said, Oh, Elle, long time no see. You didn't come home for the New Year's holiday, so I thought you might have died alone or something. Happy New Year, Liliana. Thanks for your concern. I'm perfectly fine, don't worry. Since Liliana started the new year with a snide comment, I responded accordingly, but she didn't back down. Elle, I'm married to your brother, so I'm family to you too. Do you understand? What? What's this all of a sudden? Ignoring my feelings, Liliana started saying incomprehensible things. We're technically relatives, you know. Do you know about family relationships? You might not get it since you're single, but it's important, you know. Her words, spoken with an air of authority, evoked no emotions from me. Liliana said, Basically, this is what I mean, and went into an explanatory tone. Elle, you are the only aunt for our kids, so please do your job as an aunt. What do you mean, the job of an aunt? Huh? You still don't get it? Birthdays, Christmas, and graduation gifts. Celebrating children is common sense for adults, right? So you just want material things and money. Sorry, but as you know, I'm single. I have to think about my future and can't afford to waste money. What are you talking about? Spending money on family isn't a waste, is it? Huh? Ignoring the tension in the room, she continued. Oh, by the way, your nephew's birthday is coming up. You've thought of a present for him, haven't you? Didn't you listen to me? I said I can't afford to waste money. But spending money on your adorable nephew isn't a waste. Oh, you're his only aunt. Please don't be so childish. You're single, so saving for retirement doesn't really matter now, does it? In that moment, something inside me snapped. I can't take any more. When I gave a gift for the birth, she bit my head off, and if I don't give one, she complains. All this time, she's trampled on my kindness, and now she expects me to be an aunt? I won't be taken for a fool. She's self-centered to the extreme. Fury reaching its peak, I calmly told her, All right, I understand. I'll get the present. At my worst, she cheerfully exclaimed, That's the Elle I know! My kids are growing up, so I'll need various things from you. Sure, every time I give a gift, I'll remind you to take care of my retirement. Huh? Her voice tightened in an instant. Without any concern, I continued. Oh, or would you prefer, I'll give you whatever you want if you become my child? No. Or maybe I should drill into their heads, if you want presents, you must take care of me. Even she raised her voice saying, Don't be ridiculous. What are you talking about? You told me you wouldn't rely on my children, didn't you? Did I know? But since I have to provide for them, I should ask for something in return, right? Enough. You should naturally give things to them as an aunt. Don't think of relying on my children. Panting, she snapped at me, and I snapped back twice as hard. If you don't want to be relied upon, then don't rely on me. Do you even realize how contradictory you're being? What? If I give a gift, you say don't rely on my children for your old age. But if I don't, you say you have no common sense. Your common sense is absurd to everyone else. How dare you say that at your age and still single? So what? I raised my voice over the phone. Marriage isn't just about doing it. It's about who you do it with. Marrying a woman like you, poor Stephen. What did you say? Stephen truly loves me. He just lost his mind for a moment. I should have advised Stephen properly before he married. You, how rude. To be frank, a child raised by an unreasonable woman like you would be far less well-adjusted than one raised by a sensible person like me. What do you, who has never had children, know about this? If you want to preach so arrogantly, brag about it after raising your child to be a responsible taxpayer. I will never associate with you again. If you want to leech off someone, do it to someone else. In a moment of fury, I hang up the phone and immediately block Liliana's number. I then call my brother and tell him what happened. I had no idea this happened. Elle, I'm really sorry that Liliana has been so rude and offensive. It's okay. I don't think Liliana and I will ever get along. We had a big fight after all. No, but it's fine. I don't intend to deal with her anymore. I feel bad for you, but I don't want to be manipulated by her anymore. I don't want an apology. My only wish is to completely sever my relationship with Liliana. Afterward, I asked my brother to delete my contact information from Liliana's mobile phone. I also contacted my parents asking, please don't tell her anything about me if she asks. When I go home, I make sure my visits don't coincide with my brother and his wife, and I ask him to call only when Liliana is not around. Since then, I haven't seen Liliana. My nieces and nephews were really cute, and I would like to watch them grow up if I could, but the stress from Liliana was even greater. Whether I was doing something out of kindness or not, Liliana always complained and threw sarcastic comments. How convenient are the family relationships she talks about? She can't comprehend it at all. Liliana is apparently still complaining to my brother about me. Elle blocked my calls. Unbelievable. What about the entrance gift? It can't be nothing, right? Your nephew's birthday is coming up soon, right? Surely you're not really going to ignore it. And so on. Ranting and causing trouble for my brother. I feel truly relieved to have cut ties with her early. Given how things were, it was only a matter of time before her relationship with my brother soured. I've withdrawn from Liliana's troublesome family relationships, and I don't feel inconvenienced. Rather, I'm more stress-free than before. My parents, too, are fed up with Liliana and show understanding towards me, which is truly a relief. They said, I'll let you secretly meet with your nieces and nephews. Now that I don't have to waste money on family relationships, I want to use it for my own happiness and ultimately for my old age.
Hey, Julia. Can we talk?
What's up, mother-in-law?
Well, it's not easy for me to say this, but I'm not exactly living a lavish life myself.
Okay.
So I can't financially help you out anymore.
Wait, help out?
You're aware I'm living on a fixed income, right? I can't continue to assist you.
Hold on, mother-in-law. What are you talking about?
Huh?
My name is Julia, a 27-year-old working woman. I met my husband Kevin through a mutual friend, and we got married after a year and a half of dating. Kevin can get a bit carried away sometimes, but he's a fun-loving and kind person. The reason I wanted to marry him was that he values family very much.
I want to take care of my mom, you know. She's getting on in years and I want to repay her for everything.
Before we got married, Kevin often talked like this, making me see him as a wonderful, family-oriented person. When we got engaged, we visited Kevin's family home, and mother-in-law welcomed me warmly. I felt relieved seeing that she was exactly as Kevin had described.
I am so thrilled you're becoming Kevin's wife, Julia. He's lucky to have such a wonderful woman.
Mother-in-law has always been kind to me, even after we got married.
If you're busy with work and can't manage the household, feel free to ask for help.
Thank you, mother-in-law. In-laws are a common issue for many, but between us, there's no tension or harassment. In fact, we have a very good relationship, like a real mother and daughter. However, after some time being married, something began to bother me. Not about mother-in-law, but about Kevin.
Man, I am beat. Let's go over to Mom's place today and get some dinner, huh?
What are you talking about? Today is Kevin's day to cook dinner, right? In our house, both of us working, we take turns cooking dinner. On Kevin's cooking day, this is what he said as soon as he got home.
So I said I'm tired from work, right? Let's just eat at my mom's place.
Now? Isn't it a bit last minute? Won't it be a hassle?
It's fine. Mom would love having us there. It makes things more lively.
Kevin's mom, or mother-in-law as we call her, lives alone in a big house since my father-in-law passed away before we got married. Sure, having meals alone in that big house must feel a bit lonely. But isn't it pretty rude to just show up and expect to be fed? While it's one thing for Kevin to drop by whenever he wants, I feel uncomfortable imposing. Besides, even mother-in-law might find it inconvenient if we just show up for dinner. Is Kevin under the impression that meals at home work like a diner? Hey, let's call ahead just to be sure.
Why? I don't need to call my own house.
Kevin, it may be your home, but I still feel like we should be polite. We're adults after all. Even with family, there's a way to do things. Since I insisted, Kevin reluctantly called his home.
She said it's fine.
Really? She didn't say we're imposing?
No, she didn't. Mom said, come on over. You worry too much, Julia.
Kevin said this with such confidence that I decided to just go along with it for today. At the house, mother-in-law welcomed us with her usual warm smile. Welcome! Dinner's ready. Let's eat. Mother-in-law, isn't this a lot of food? Must have been hard to prepare all this. I got so happy to hear you're joining us for dinner. I might have overdone it. I'm sorry for dropping in unannounced, but this looks delicious. Let's eat. There's plenty, so make sure you eat a lot.
See? Told you it would be fine. Mom's cooking is the best, right? Dig in, Julia.
Saying this, Kevin casually opened a beer from the fridge. That's rich coming from you, I thought as I enjoyed mother-in-law's cooking. So, does it suit your taste? Mother-in-law, everything is delicious. I'd love to make this at home. Would you teach me? Oh, how wonderful to hear. Let's cook together next time. Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. In reality, mother-in-law's cooking was absolutely delicious and full of homey warmth. Thanks to her generous hospitality, our spontaneous dinner turned out to be quite enjoyable. A few days after our last visit, my husband suggested eating at his mom's place again. We just went the other day. We shouldn't impose so often.
It's fine. I called ahead this time.
You did?
Yeah, I told her we'd be coming over today.
What? Today's your turn to make dinner, isn't it? Are you planning to skip your duty?
No, I'm not slacking off. If we go to my mom's, there'll be food ready. That counts, right?
You're just pawning off the work on her. That's not fair to her. I was unsettled by my husband's selfish reasoning. But since my mother-in-law had already prepared a meal, we couldn't let it go to waste. Feeling guilty, I went with him to visit his family home. Sorry for dropping by so frequently, Mom. Don't worry, I'm happy to help out when you're in a pinch. The thing is, we weren't really in a pinch. If anyone was, it was my husband. He probably found cooking a hassle and relied on his mom to bail him out. I couldn't say anything, feeling guilty towards my mother-in-law. After that, my husband got used to dodging his cooking duties. Most of the nights he was supposed to cook, we ended up at his mom's. She always welcomed us with delicious food. By the third visit, I felt we needed to make a change. It's great that we go to your mom's, but it's not fair to keep letting her treat us. We should at least say thank you properly.
How?
Let's at least cover the cost of ingredients.
She enjoys doing it. Why would she need money?
Still, it adds up. It's the least we can do.
We're eating less at home, so why not give her something?
She might not accept it from me. Could you hand it to her? I thought my mother-in-law might refuse to accept money for groceries from me. However, I believed that she would accept it from her son, so I decided to ask my husband instead.
Thanks for considering, Mom. I'll make sure to give it to her.
By contributing towards the ingredients, I felt relieved that we were at least easing some of mother-in-law's burden. Continuing from the previous scenario, the husband nonchalantly insisted that they eat meals at his parents' house on his assigned days. For about half a year, we had meals at my husband's family home around 3 times a week. Since we were giving them money, I thought maybe I was taking advantage of my mother-in-law. Then, one day, I was hit with an unexpected truth.
Ah, another delicious meal.
My husband was lying down and watching TV after having dinner at his parents' house. My mother-in-law and I were cleaning up after the meal. Usually we'd chat cheerfully as we tidied up, but today, mother-in-law looked serious. Wondering what was wrong, she started to talk.
Julia, can I talk to you?
What is it, mother-in-law?
I hate to bring this up, but I'm not living a lavish life either.
Okay.
So I can't continue to support you guys.
Support? What are you talking about?
You know, we're living on a pension, right? We can't afford to help you anymore.
Wait a minute, mother-in-law. What are you talking about?
Huh? You come over for meals and we're giving you money because you said times are tough, right? We don't have much from our pension. It's a struggle.
I didn't know anything about that.
What?
We've been giving you money too, for the meals. We thought it would at least cover the groceries, and we gave the money to Kevin.
Groceries? I never received anything from Kevin.
What? As we continued to talk, it became clear that there was a major misunderstanding. I realized it must be the doing of one person. Angrily, I confronted my husband, who was carelessly lounging in the living room. Kevin, what's the meaning of this?
Huh? What's up?
I grabbed the collar of my slightly intoxicated, grinning husband. What's going on? Answer me!
What? Why are you yelling? What's the problem?
That's what I'm asking you. What's this support mother-in-law's talking about?
Huh? What do you mean?
And where's the money we gave you for meals? Mother-in-law says she knows nothing about it.
Well, you see...
Suspicious. Very suspicious. Unable to explain where the money had gone, my husband started to stammer, his eyes darting around. My husband, whose collar I had just grabbed and shaken, resettled himself with a pale face. So, what's going on?
What are you talking about?
Really? You're still playing dumb? Even my usually gentle mom was infuriated by Kevin's vague demeanor. You came to us saying you're in trouble. We fed you and even gave you money. Mom, please, let's keep calm. It's Kevin making me angry, isn't it? We were enjoying Mom's delicious cooking, and the mood was great. Let's just drop it. Where did the money go? Answer me! Well, that's a bit complicated. My husband mumbled and fell silent. So you really won't tell me where the money went? Fine, wait here. I told my husband that and stepped away for a while. Then I called brother-in-law and told him the situation. Brother-in-law, 7 years my senior, had been supporting my husband's family financially for a long time, filling in for our frequently hospitalized father-in-law. Kevin had even had some of his college tuition covered by brother-in-law's earnings, so he couldn't talk back to him. Brother-in-law cared deeply for his much younger brother Kevin, and me as family. I've called brother-in-law. He's on his way. What? Why did you call him? Why? Because you won't give me a straight answer, Kevin. What's so bad about him coming? No, well, Knowing I had called brother-in-law, my husband seemed quite unsettled. Soon after brother-in-law, who lives nearby, arrived. Kevin, what did you do with the money from Julia and Mom? Speak up! Oh, well, I didn't use it for anything major. What was it again? I see. Brother-in-law, sensing that getting a straight answer from Kevin was going nowhere, said, Julia, this might take a while. I'll get to the bottom of this. You should head home for now. Julia, I'll go home with you. Nope, you're staying right here. Don't you think you'll get any sleep tonight? You're off work tomorrow anyway. Let's have a long talk. Thank you, brother-in-law. I appreciate it. Julia, help me! Ignoring my husband's soft plea, I went back home. Though I returned to my own house, I was so worried that I could hardly sleep that night. So, the family was summoned again to my husband's parents' home the next afternoon. Hello, I apologize for the inconvenience last night. No worries. Sorry for calling you back here again. As my heart pounded, I entered the room to find that even my brother-in-law's wife was present. Why would the whole family gather like this? What on earth did Kevin do? As soon as I took my seat, my mother-in-law and brother-in-law began to apologize profusely. Julia, I am so sorry. My brother did something terrible. What's going on? Even you, mother-in-law? Kevin, what happened? Kevin, tell Julia the truth right now. My husband was sitting formally, looking even paler than yesterday. Head bowed, he began to speak in an almost inaudible voice. Well, I messed up. What did you do? I've been unfaithful. What? Cheating? You mean like having an affair? Yes. Since when? About 6 months ago. And? What did you do with our money? Don't stay silent. Where did the money go? I used it for dates with other women. Hold on. That's a lot of money. How many fancy restaurants did you guys go to? I also bought her designer bags. What? You always dismissed my desires for one as trivial, and you bought her a bag? Turns out, my husband had been having an affair for the past 6 months and had used up the money given to him by both mother-in-law and me.
I'm really sorry. I'll break it off and never cheat again.
Hold on. You don't have to break up on my account.
What?
I am divorcing Kevin. How can I go on with someone who can't handle money or fidelity?
You can't be serious. It was just a lapse in judgment.
Sorry, but that excuse doesn't fly. Before I could say another word, mother-in-law and brother-in-law laid into him.
Enough is enough. Stop being so selfish. Do you realize you were cheating using money that your mother and Julia scrimped and saved? What do you mean, a lapse?
Giving designer bags to your affair partner? You should have been doing that for Julia, who's always working hard. You're the worst.
Ugh.
If Julia wants to break up, you don't really have the right to refuse, do you?
That's right. Make sure to pay back the money you both spent and also provide the deposit required for the divorce court. What? If we divorce, Julia will no longer be family. Are you all okay with that?
If the choice is being manipulated by Kevin forever, isn't it easier just to split? At this point, my sister-in-law, who had been silent, finally spoke up, and it seemed my husband had given up. Then, my sister-in-law took out the divorce papers she had prepared just in case. Filling out the divorce papers while being watched by my husband's family felt awkward, but I signed them right away. My husband hesitated, but under a stern look from his brother, he reluctantly signed as well. And just like that, our divorce was finalized. Through a lawyer my brother-in-law introduced me to, I requested the divorce court deposit from my ex-husband and his affair partner. I also decided to reclaim all the money that was supposed to be for my mother-in-law. Shockingly, it turned out that my ex-husband's affair partner was actually engaged. When her partner found out about the affair, the engagement was called off. Everything they had prepared for their marriage became a waste, and now both my ex-husband and his affair partner are being sued for damages by the ex-fiancé. My ex-husband, who is now burdened with a significant amount of debt for the divorce court deposit, was forcibly sent back to his parents' home. His salary is being managed by my responsible sister-in-law to ensure the repayment of the divorce court deposit. Currently, he only gets a paltry $10 for lunch and shuttles between his home and workplace. He seems to be grumbling about his miserable life, but he brought this upon himself. Having an affair with someone else's money is despicable. There's no other way to put it. He spent all that money on his affair partners, but it wasn't his money to begin with. So complaining about it is pointless. As for me, I've moved to a new apartment and am enjoying a stress-free life. I always loved my ex-husband's family, so we're still on good terms. I secretly go out to eat with my former mother-in-law and brother-in-law and his wife, maintaining our relationship. I guess I should be thankful for the wonderful connections I've made, leaving the disappointing ex-husband aside.
Hey Alicia, I've got a last-minute business trip next week. Would you mind taking care of the house while I'm gone?
What? How long will you be away?
About a week, I guess.
A week? Isn't that a long time? Do you really have that much to do at work?
Well, yeah. I've got my hands full.
In that case, you might as well stay away forever.
What do you mean?
I've been holding back, but I don't get why you act so busy with a job that's not even that demanding. Most people your age are retired. Are you just clinging to your job because you're greedy for money?
I'm not trying to act busy. If I've made you uncomfortable, I apologize. But I'm not clinging to my job. I work because I enjoy it. Jumping to conclusions isn't a good look.
Fine, whatever. Why don't you just keep working forever then? I don't want to see a low-wage grandma around here.
What?
I only moved in because you said you were a single mom. I wanted to live just with Derek. And now you're telling me you're low wage? There's nothing good about this.
All right, I get it. I won't come back. Just like you said. What? I decided to pack my bags and leave the house before my business trip. But I knew I'd be back. Alicia doesn't know that yet. My name is Lenora. About a year and a half ago, my son Derek called to say he had something important to discuss and was coming home. He was almost 30, so maybe he was getting married. But he'd said he wasn't interested in marriage just a year ago. Probably he needed to borrow money or something. But on the day he arrived, he brought a lovely woman with him. We've been dating for almost a year, and we're thinking of getting married. What? Really? I was genuinely surprised. My son, who had said he wasn't interested in marriage, was now getting married. Didn't you say you weren't interested in marriage? Well, I knew I'd have to get married eventually. Then I met Alicia and knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. So I proposed. I see. What do you like about Derek, Alicia? Hey, don't ask embarrassing questions. Why not?
I guess he's kind?
Wow, that's sweet. This is why I didn't want to tell you, Mom. You asked too many questions, like an annoying relative. Don't worry about it, Alicia. Please take good care of Derek. He might seem childish at times, but he's genuinely kind-hearted. If he ever says something that bothers you, feel free to tell me.
Thank you, mother-in-law.
I remember our family meetings always had a cheerful atmosphere. During one of these, Derek had a suggestion about moving in together. Mom's alone since Dad passed away, right? So I've asked Alicia if we could all live together. I know that living with your mother-in-law can be tricky, but Mom's almost 60, and I have my concerns. I think it would be easier for me if we lived together. What do you think?
Well, sure. Derek was in 10th grade when my husband passed away. The cause was unclear. Maybe overwork, maybe illness. But after a long battle, he left us. Everything became irrelevant, and I was knocked down to the bottom of despair. We had always been close, hardly ever fighting. Some say relationships cool over time, but that never happened with us. Losing the man I loved so much felt like losing my will to live. How could I go on? During those dark days, Derek was my rock. Mom, how long are you going to stay down? Looking down won't bring Dad back. He's up there. So shouldn't we look up and keep moving? His words snapped me out of it, and I started living again. At 17, Derek had showed me how much he had grown. I thought of him as a child, but he was more mature than his parents. It was both happy and sad.
His marriage was another milestone, and now he was even considering living together. I am really grateful that you even thought about living together. He's told me so far. So I accepted his generous offer. Little did I know this decision would take an unexpected turn. After moving in, Derek and I were both working, so weekdays were busy. Alicia was home during those times. I was worried about getting along, but then one day, I heard something shocking. One day. It was an early day at work, and I got home earlier than usual. The house was quiet, no one in the living room. But I heard voices upstairs and went to investigate. It was Alicia. She was on the phone, so I started to quietly go back downstairs. But then, a certain phrase caught my ear. He's worried about her living alone, so Derek suggested we all move in together. Can you believe it? When I casually mentioned that it might be nice for just the two of us to live together, he started talking about a two-family home. She doesn't have money, so guess who's going to foot the bill? To avoid wasting money, I reluctantly agreed to live together. Ugh, it's the worst. The person on the other end must be a friend. And the old lady she's talking about on the phone must be me. I thought she had happily agreed to live together, but it seems that's not the case. After hearing this, I can't continue living with her. But I paused to think. If I tell Derek that Alicia doesn't want to live together, wouldn't that cause a rift between them? So I thought about ending the living arrangement without giving a reason. But I couldn't find a convenient one. In the end, I decided to pretend I hadn't heard anything. But complaints from Alicia kept slipping through. I was often away from home due to work, and during those times I left the house matters to Alicia. She seemed willing, but according to her phone conversations with her friend, she felt obligated as a daughter-in-law. When my work trips increased, her complaints started to surface. She's not here again? Is mother-in-law actually working? Yes, she is. I thought maybe she was on vacation since she's gone so much. She always spoke with a sarcastic tone. I do wish she'd take care of the house if she's home. I always express my gratitude, but she seems unsatisfied. And that brings us to now. Alicia told me not to come back, so I decided to leave as she wished. There's something I've been hiding from Alicia and Derek. I said I often have work trips, but that's not true. I've been staying away to give them more time together. Lately, I've increased the frequency, making sure I'm away at least 2 days every 2 weeks. I thought this was the best way to avoid conflict, but it seems I was wrong. I've caused this situation with my decisions. So, I have a responsibility to make it right. With that in mind, I contacted Derek. We agreed to meet, and I headed to the designated location. According to Derek, Alicia told him that I didn't want to live together anymore. She can lie even in this situation. That's something. So is it true? You don't want to live together? I never felt that way, but it seems Alicia did. What's going on? I overheard her talking to a friend on the phone. She said she never wanted to live with us in the first place. She only agreed because making it a two-family home would cost more. Really? Yeah. I would have been fine not living together too. But Derek suggested it, and I thought it might cause a fight between you two, so I didn't bring it up. I see. But I get where she's coming from. Living in someone else's house isn't ideal. Everyone wants their own space. You're right. Maybe we didn't communicate enough as a couple. I might have been too pushy with my opinions. True. I'd like to say, let's talk it out and get along. But there's something important. Did Derek buy Alicia's red bag? Red bag? Not sure. Why do you ask? There's a chance Alicia might be cheating. What? Are you kidding? Why would you think that? If this is some kind of venting, I won't stand for it. Do you really think I'd make something like this up? I have my suspicions. Remember how I said she's always complaining on the phone? I thought she was talking to a girlfriend. But then I heard her say, "Is everything okay with your girlfriend? And come over on Wednesday when I'm home alone." Are you serious? I can't say for sure it's cheating, but it's worth considering. I'll ask Alicia directly. Thanks, Mom. Hold on. Do you think she'll just admit it? Like I said, she mentioned Wednesday. That's probably when the other guy comes over. Why not confront her then? Good point. Tomorrow's Wednesday, and I've got the day off. I'm off work tomorrow afternoon too. Maybe it's time to make her regret kicking me out and calling me low income. And so, Derek and I decided to put our plan into action the next day. By the way, when I asked Derek why he hadn't told Alicia about my job, he said she wouldn't understand anyway. She thought being an executive meant something like a student organization leader or a volunteer role, and assumed I didn't have much money. The next day arrived. After finishing work, I headed home and found Derek already waiting near our house. He said he saw a man we'd seen at a wedding go into our house. When we talked, it turned out that a man we'd seen at a wedding had gone into the house. That guy was mingling with Alicia's classmates at the wedding. He was getting a little too friendly with her, and it annoyed me. Interesting. Well, shall we go in? We entered our home. As expected, the living room was empty. In contrast, we could hear cheerful voices coming from upstairs. Voices that made it clear what was going on. Hearing this, Derek and I quietly made our way upstairs. Man, you're something else. You managed to kick your mother-in-law out of her own house, huh? Not just any daughter-in-law can do that, you know? Well, I guess I'm just fearless. And honestly, a mother-in-law who acts busy all the time just annoys me. Then maybe you should have married me instead. I thought about it, but you weren't serious about your job back then. You're a full-time employee now, but you still can't beat my husband. He makes a ton of money. I bet my mother-in-law is living off his income. Isn't that embarrassing at her age? True. Let's keep this relationship going for a while. My current girlfriend is planning for our wedding, but she's so bossy. Yikes. Sounds like a breakup waiting to happen. Then I can just marry Alicia.
Derek and I were at our boiling point. There was no need to hold back any longer. We burst into the room where Alicia and her lover were. Their faces turned pale instantly.
What the hell are you two doing here?
Derek? And mother-in-law too?
Hey, weren't you supposed to be out today?
That was the plan. So I'm just as surprised.
You're the guy from the wedding. Alicia's classmate, right? I just heard your conversation outside. I'll be sure to let your fiancé know. There could be a claim for damages, so save your money. What?
Alicia, you were cheating after all. Why? Alicia, now concerned, became defiant. The reason is obvious. I've been stressed since I moved into this house, so I cheated to relieve that stress. It felt good to forget about this house, Derek, and especially you, mother-in-law. So, Derek, are you going to claim damages?
Absolutely.
Oh, really? I am a housewife, you know. I can't pay. Are you doing this because mother-in-law told you to?
She's really greedy, isn't she? Wow, you're still talking back in this situation?
Yeah, I was getting tired of trying to please a low-income old lady anyway.
You've got it all wrong.
Let me explain in terms you can understand. You think being a CEO means having a lot of money, right? Yes. Before you and Derek got married, I was the CEO of a company. What? Now I've stepped down and serve as an executive. Executives are different from regular employees. We're involved in running the company. It's a challenging but rewarding job that pays well. Wait, hold on. I knew you were an executive, but I thought that was more like a volunteer role. That's where you're wrong. I don't know how you concluded that I was low income. You should have realized I had some money when you found out I raised Derek on my own. Oh, I never hid this from you. You just didn't understand. Don't take it personally. And about not paying damages because you're a housewife, that's not going to fly. We'll find a way to get it back, like selling that red bag of yours. What? It looks expensive. We'll have other ways too. We have a very competent lawyer who'll make sure you're cornered, my dear. Ugh! Oh! And so, this chapter came to a close. Derek and Alicia got divorced. Derek claimed damages and the man's fiancée was furious, breaking off their engagement. They're both working hard now, probably for a long time, to pay off the damages. It will probably pay off over a long period of time. Derek is single again, but is eager to remarry. He told me he'll bring someone who'll cherish me next time. I'm so proud of my son. I look forward to watching Derek grow and plan to enjoy the rest of my life with a smile.
You can't have kids, so you're losing to me as a woman. You might be done as a woman, but if I say I'm single, men flock to me, you know? Just like that, Jennifer, the wife of my brother-in-law Jason, always looked down on me. I always felt stressed out because of Jennifer. But I never imagined that Jennifer had such a secret. My name is Emily. Right now, I'm dealing with a very troubling issue. The stress from my brother-in-law's wife is overwhelming. Jason's wife's name is Jennifer. She's the daughter of a former CEO, and she's quite headstrong. Jennifer's family company, seems to have gone bankrupt, but she still acts like a spoiled princess. She's the type who isn't satisfied unless she's the best at everything. Because of this, she always treats me with an excessively superior attitude. Lately, she seems to be upset that I'm closer with Patricia than I am with her. The other day, when Patricia was thanking me, Jennifer saw it and said, "Trying to be the perfect daughter-in-law is so annoying. Living together even though you're the wife of the younger son? You must be after the inheritance." I can understand why Jason's wife feels this way, but there's no reason for her to say such things. The reason being, it was Jennifer, Jason's wife, who refused to live with Patricia. I mean, if she didn't like me being close to Patricia, she should have lived with her in the first place. Initially, Jason's family was going to live together, but right before moving, Jason's wife refused. Moreover, she said, "Living together is so old-fashioned. Patricia should go to a facility." Because of that, my husband and I stepped up. Patricia is a gentle person, and I had no reservations about living with her. Jennifer kept pushing for a facility until the end, but after discussions, my husband and I decided to live with Patricia. Even then, Jason's wife complained, saying, "You don't really want to live together, but you're acting like the perfect wife, which makes me look bad. It seems like I'm the inadequate wife compared to you." On the day we began living together, I received a message from Jennifer. The message read, "I won't be taking care of Patricia at all. You handle all the caregiving." And to think, I never expected Jennifer to help out in the first place. The reason being, Jennifer doesn't do housework. Well, to be precise, she doesn't even try. Whether it's remnants of her princess upbringing or just plain laziness, I don't know. Despite not working outside, it seems she leaves all the household tasks to Jason. Jason works for a major company and is quite accomplished, but he seems to have poor judgment when it comes to women. He's head over heels for Jennifer and tends to do whatever she says. Because of this, Jennifer takes advantage of his affection and becomes even more arrogant. Jennifer occasionally visits our home and always makes unreasonable requests, acting as if she sees me as her maid. Yesterday, she dumped a pile of clothes on me and said, "Emily, iron all of these for me." "I can't because I'm afraid of getting burned." Do they think I'm always free just because I work as a web writer from home? Sorry, but I'm busy with work and can't do that. When I refused, she scoffed and said, "Work? Aren't you just staring at a computer? Stop playing and do as I say." I'm not playing. This is my job. Jennifer, since you have so much free time, why don't you try doing it yourself? Ironing isn't that hard, you know? When I talked back, she glared at me and said, "Do you enjoy bullying me like that?" Jennifer always acts high and mighty, but the moment I push back even a little, she suddenly plays the victim. I said with exasperation, "I'm not bullying you. Isn't it more like you're bullying me, always pushing work on me every day?" Upon hearing that, she ran to Patricia in the next room and started complaining. "Patricia, she called me useless just because I can't iron. I can't because of my chronic pain in my hands." "Is that so? I'll iron it for you. Just leave it there," said Patricia, the mother-in-law, kindly to Jennifer. Even after that, Jennifer badmouthed me to Patricia and then left with a contented look. After Jennifer left, Patricia called me over and said, "I'm sorry, Emily. I have to agree with Jennifer, or things will get even more troublesome." Patricia apologized to me, looking remorseful. "It's okay, Patricia. You did nothing wrong. I knew Patricia trusted me." Even the kind-hearted Patricia was having a tough time with the eldest son's wife. Then one day, something happened. Jason, the brother-in-law, called Patricia on the phone. Jennifer was pregnant. It's her first time, so Jennifer might be nervous. I'm counting on you. That's what Jason apparently told Patricia. To be honest, I couldn't genuinely rejoice. The reason being, I've been trying to get pregnant for the past 3 years. My husband and I, both loving children dearly, had been waiting for this blessing, but it hadn't come our way. I had undergone fertility treatments until recently, but it was mentally and financially draining, so I had to quit. And now, Jennifer's pregnancy. Knowing this, I was certain Jennifer would flaunt her superiority over me. She'd always acted superior about her looks, upbringing, financial status, and other things, but now it would be about having a child, something that would hurt me deeply. The very next day, Jennifer arrived clearly in a good mood. Sure enough, as soon as she saw me, she said, "Being pregnant is so hard. There's morning sickness, fatigue, and your body doesn't move like it used to. You probably wouldn't understand since you've never been pregnant." That must be tough. Holding back the surge of negative emotions, I replied. She then stretched out her leg to me and said, "Yeah, it is. Oh, my legs feel so swollen. Emily, can you give me a massage?" "Excuse me?" Jennifer, seeing my confusion, pressed on, saying, "Poor circulation is bad for the baby. You'll massage them for me, right?" It almost sounded like a threat. With no choice, I began massaging Jennifer's feet. While I massaged, she boasted, "The real happiness for a woman is having a child. A life without kids is just like trash. Emily, you should have kids soon. If you wait too long, you'll miss out on being a real woman." By the time Jennifer left, my heart was torn apart, and I genuinely wished to never see Jennifer again. But she continued to come over, claiming, "I'm pregnant, so I deserve to be spoiled." And she became even more demanding. Dealing with Jennifer like this, I felt immense stress and even developed alopecia areata. Eventually, as her pregnancy progressed, Jennifer safely gave birth to twin girls via a cesarean section. The names of the children are Rebecca and Nancy. The 2 girls were so angelic and adorable, it was hard to believe they were Jennifer's children. The stress from Jennifer was still present, but the children's presence healed my heart. About 2 years passed. Jason decided to move to a location a bit far off. But Jennifer didn't want to go to the countryside, so Jason chose to go on his own, leaving his family behind. As soon as Jason was away, Jennifer started acting out. She began to visit our home daily with the kids in tow. And she would leave the children with me and head out into the night. She went out so often that when I confronted her, she'd retort, "I need a break sometimes. What would you do if I got a breakdown from child rearing? Would you take responsibility?" So it became routine for me to cook dinner for the kids, feed them, and bathe them. Taking care of the adorable Rebecca and Nancy wasn't a burden for me. In fact, not having children of my own, I cherished the motherly feeling. However, the young Rebecca and Nancy would sometimes cry out, "Where's Mommy?" Every time, it felt like my heart was being crushed. It seemed Patricia felt the same way, saying with a saddened tone, "Where could she possibly go every day, leaving such little ones behind?" I felt so sorry for Rebecca and Nancy that I decided to contact Jason. When I explained the situation, he exclaimed, "What? This has been happening while I'm away?" He immediately apologized, saying, "I'm so sorry for causing trouble for Patricia." "No worries, but don't you think it's a good idea to look into what Jennifer is up to?" When I mentioned that, Jason responded, seemingly flustered. I can't investigate her. I trust Jennifer, you know. I sighed and said, "It's because you're like this, Jason, that Jennifer does whatever she wants. For the sake of Rebecca and Nancy, please find out if she's cheating on you right away." Though initially reluctant, Jason's resistance faded under my determination. He hesitantly agreed to hire a detective to investigate any infidelity. A month later, as usual, Jennifer dropped off the kids and left. However, that day, she didn't return even after midnight. I tried contacting Jennifer's cell phone multiple times, but couldn't get through. I had no choice but to reach out to Jason. A few hours later, Jason, coming from afar, whispered while looking at the sleeping faces of Rebecca and Nancy, "I've about reached my limit." Given the late hour that night, Rebecca, Nancy, and Jason all stayed at our house. Jennifer finally returned the next morning. As I was preparing breakfast, a cheerful Jennifer arrived, reeking of alcohol, and said, "I'm back." "Where were you? What were you thinking?" Even as I confronted her angrily, Jennifer just laughed it off irresponsibly. "Going out without a word? Partying all night? Don't you have any sense of responsibility as a mother?" When I pressed her further, her expression suddenly changed. She snapped, "You think you're so righteous. You don't have kids, so you'll never understand my stress." I was so furious that I fell silent. Jennifer, with a smug look on her face, continued, "You can't have kids, which means you lose to me in every way as a woman. Be it looks, upbringing, finances, I'm superior in every aspect. And if I was single, I'd have countless men chasing after me, you know." "Don't you feel sorry for Rebecca and Nancy?" I asked, exasperated. She snapped back, "Feel sorry? What would you, a childless woman, know about it? Don't pretend you understand. Enough is enough. If you're their mother, at least make dinner for them." I didn't back down and countered, "You sure talk a lot, especially for someone who doesn't have kids." Just as Jennifer shouted back, there was a sudden splash. A splash out of nowhere. Patricia, who had been in the kitchen, had thrown soup from a pot all over Jennifer. "Ah! What are you doing?" Jennifer cried out, both shocked and upset. I was equally stunned, unable to believe what I had just witnessed. Jennifer, now drenched in soup, stood there, completely taken aback. Just then, alerted by Jennifer's screaming, her husband and Jason rushed into the kitchen. Alerted by Jennifer's screams, her husband and Jason quickly entered the kitchen. Seeing Jason, Jennifer immediately cried out, "Jason, help me! Patricia and Emily have been so cruel to me." But Jason responded coldly, "Don't touch me," and pushed Jennifer away. What's gotten into you, Jason?" Jennifer, her face flushed with embarrassment, began to panic. "Everyone here knows about your late-night escapades," I told her pointedly. The color drained from Jennifer's face. "What are you talking about? What do you know?" Jennifer demanded, her face beet red. Jason shouted, "I know about your affair. We're getting a divorce." In truth, about a week earlier, we had gathered at a local restaurant without Jennifer. During this gathering, Jason had shared the results of the investigation into her infidelity with us. According to the investigation, Jennifer was out hunting for men in nightclubs and bars almost every night. When she found someone she liked, they would head to a hotel. That seemed to be her pattern. Once Jason learned of Jennifer's betrayal, he was set on the path to divorce and started making preparations immediately. "Divorce? I don't want that!" Panic evident in her voice. However, Jason firmly stated, "We have all the evidence. Please leave immediately. I'll take custody of the kids. Jennifer suddenly burst into laughter, smugly retorting, Humph! You, always engrossed in your work, could never handle raising kids on your own. You can't do it without me. I countered Jennifer's arrogance. Don't worry, I'll take full responsibility for raising the children. What? Jennifer glared at me, utterly confused by what I had just said. But Jason firmly stated, I've asked everyone here. From now on, we'll all raise the children together, so we'll be fine without you. Even Jennifer seemed to be in shock at Jason's declaration. She resisted at first, but when faced with the overwhelming evidence of her affairs, it appeared she realized her situation was hopeless. Still reeking of soup, she resignedly filled out the divorce papers. In despair, Jennifer uttered, What will become of me now, having lost everything? I couldn't resist and retorted, I'm sure you'll be fine after the divorce, Jennifer. After all, didn't you just boast about how you'd have tons of men flocking to you if you were single? Jennifer broke down in tears at my words. It was the moment when all the resentment I'd held against her seemed to finally dissipate. After the divorce was finalized, Jason continued working in the countryside for a while. As a result, my husband and I primarily took on the responsibility of raising Rebecca and Nancy. I never managed to have children of my own, but I've been blessed with the joy of raising the adorable Rebecca and Nancy. Patricia, too, looks delighted playing with her granddaughters every day. While I was worried about them not having their mother around, it's evident that Rebecca and Nancy are thriving, surrounded by our love. With Jennifer gone, a peaceful life finally graced our home. As for Jennifer, I heard she's been juggling part-time jobs and living in a cheap apartment. Having never worked before, Jennifer seems to be struggling constantly losing jobs or quitting. On top of her living expenses, she has to pay compensation to Jason. It seems she's been long cut off from her family, so with no one to rely on, her life sounds pretty tough. Jennifer, who always held herself above others, probably can't maintain such an attitude anymore. I genuinely hope this turn of events encourages her to change and live a more humble life.